All right, good day, Moochers. Not sure what day it is of lockdown. I think it's about 14 or 15, lost track. What I'm going to go through today is some different options as far as footwear goes. So when you're on the rocks, it's really important to look after yourselves. Part of that is making sure that you've got footwear that's going to give you enough grip so that you're not slipping and sliding all over the show. As you're getting to your spot, also while you're hooked up to a fish. Over the years, I've tried a whole range of different shoes. I'm going to talk about a handful of them now and some of the pros and cons of each. I figured I'd start with the worst option that I found on the rocks is a pair of running shoes. Any of your typical running shoes that you would use for road running are utter rubbish on the rocks. Anything I found with a big, chunky sole to it is terrible for your ankles. So yeah, avoid a big sole wherever possible. With a bigger sole, there's more room for you to roll either way. Running shoes are absolute shockers, and often the bottoms, the grip on them is not very good off the rocks. And probably even below that is a full length gumboot with no holes in it at all. If you look at drowning statistics around our country, lots of fishermen die, especially on the west coast. And lots of them are wearing gumboots because obviously if you fall into the water, you get washed off. These fill up with water and you're going to sink to the bottom. So avoid just straight gumboots as well. Probably a good point to make is that whenever I go land-based fishing, I pretty much go knowing that my shoes are going to get wet. For us, it's usually getting to the spot, getting back, getting wet, but also landing fish. Casting, getting to a ledge that's a bit further away, you have to do a bit of a swim. So yeah, pretty much shoes are always going to get wet. About investing in some hard out like waterproof tramping boots, but then I quickly discovered that they get wet all the time. So if I'm standing in water that goes above the top of the boot, the water's just going to go in anyway. So kind of avoided those. Probably at the very top of my list, or thereabouts, the original Nike Frees. So these are New Balance. These are just my my sort of go-to work shoe as a PE teacher. But if you can get a hold of the original Nike Frees, you are a lucky individual, because they're just about as rare as hen's teeth now. But I don't know if you remember them. They were the ones that had like the individual squares on the bottom. So these were all divided up, and then there was like a lattice of them, and each one was like an individual square in the end. Those shoes were the best shoes by far that I've ever come across on the rocks. I had a pair that lasted probably 2 or 3 seasons comfortably. They gave the best grip. They were really comfortable. And they also dried quickly too. So and they were light. So if you can get a hold of a pair of old Nike Frees, the original ones, not the newer versions. The newer versions have a sole more like this, just sort of more of a standard sole. But if you can get a pair, or if you can hook me up with a pair of size 11 Nike Frees, the originals, I'll be your best friend, promise. But yeah, those are the ultimate shoe, Nike Frees. Something I found really good over recent years is actually these, which are a pair of steel cap gumboots that I cut the tops off, so they're just above sort of ankle height. If I was to do this option again, I would probably not go the steel cap, just because they're quite heavy, and after, if you've walked a long bit of coast, these are quite heavy. They get a bit uncomfortable. The grip on gumboots, I mean, these are pretty worn now. But on a new pair of gumboots, they actually go pretty good. These are actually what my old man wore his entire fishing career off the rocks. But what he used to do, which I keep meaning to do with these, is to drill holes on either side of them, so that when they fill up with water, the water can just shoot out the sides. Another very good shoe was the Dunlop Volleys. I mean, as far as grip goes, those are probably right up there with the best. They've got a really thin sole, so there's no sort of rolling of your ankles. They're really light, perfect shoe. And I went through probably 2 or 3 pairs of them, which was the only downside. Probably after 2 or 3 land-based trips, they really started to wear at the bottom. And then 4 or 5 trips in, they're pretty much buggered. Like the whole bottom would split Really good option as far as grip goes, but they don't last very long. Cool, and then my most recent pair of shoes, which they're actually proving to be right up there with the best, thanks to Jake at Low Cab International, the Hanapaa, I think I'm saying that right, Hanapaa, and they're like a hybrid wetsuit booty slash rock shoe. They're from Hawaii, and they've got this, they got like a wetsuit booty top, so with your zipper that you'll find on wetsuit booties. They've got a felt sole to them, which is really comfortable. But inside them, I don't know if you'll be able to pick this up, but in amongst the felt are these metal spikes that come through. So sort of at this, you can't really feel them, but obviously when you put pressure on, the spikes come through and they latch onto the rocks really good. These are awesome as far as grip goes on, I'd say 95% of the rocks around Waiheke, Great Barrier, in the Gulf. Where I've come unstuck with these is if you come across rocks that are completely smooth, a little bit like standing in my my dinghy. They're like ice skates because I guess the metal on metal. But yeah, the only time they've come unstuck is when they are on super smooth rocks. They can sort of skid a little bit, but any of your volcanic rocks, they just munch up oysters. They eat it all up. They're really good. And these are now probably a whole season in, so 20 plus trips so far, and they feel and look brand new. They're really hard to come by, so you won't access these in New Zealand, but if you've got a contact that can get you some of these, they're really good. Yeah, so for me, when I'm thinking about shoes for the rocks, I'm thinking about grips, number one. Something where my toes are a bit maneuverable up the front is number two. And then how light are they, and are they going to dry reasonably quickly would be my my other bits of criteria. Right, so just a roundup of the shoes and my top picks. So if I was going to go for durability and grip, I'd probably say the longest lasting and the toughest would be the old gumboots cut off. They're going to last ages and ages. I would just drill the holes in, but those are really good. If I was going to go for light and lots of grip, definitely the Nike Freeze, if you can get the old version. If I was just looking at grip and I had enough pairs, Dunlop Volleys number one for sure. And at the moment, my top pick has got to be these puppies here. They give me plenty of grip. They're light. They're good for climbing around the rocks. Those are probably my number one pick. Probably the hardest for you to get though, so that's a bit of a downside. So cool. So I hope that's of some use to you. Might just make you think about what you're wearing on your feet. Might make life more comfortable on the rocks. You might avoid falling on your ass a few more times. If you've got other suggestions for footwear, if there's something that I haven't tried, please share in the comments below. And if you're bored during lockdown, check out the other lockdown content. There might be something that you're interested in. Scotch biscuits, coffee, good.